Islam. Once again, Moorish-Americans, Moorish-America, we are coming to you on a Thursday with a special topic, the importance of cultural preservation as it relates to Moorish-Americans, because a lot of Moorish-Americans are not really aware or certain thing came up with it on their own. Never really taught the same to be able to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali wanted to present to us.
Absolutely.
So before we, we're doing basic American prayer. Universe,
Allah, the Father of the universe,
the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector,
my guide, and my salvation. By night, and by day. Through His holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Praise Allah. And we can't forget that we have a special guest on the show. You Moorish-Americans and all our people could see him at the beginning. He's being himself.
That's right.
We're not going to, and we're going to watch the bent of his inclination.
Absolutely.
But thus far, he's a very excited Moorish-American. You're always excited. Praise Allah. Well, tell the listening audience what's on your heart or your mind.
Islam. My name is Caleb, and everything in Baltimore is not going right until when I was not born, until now when I'm born. Baltimore just changed since I was a baby and a toddler, and then when I finally became in first grade, I didn't know how to put stuff together, but I was more worried about the city because the city is a dangerous place. Islam.
So that's what's on your heart, Islam. Thank you, Prince. We appreciate your presence so much. And you're gonna come back and join us another time.
I'm staying.
Oh, you gonna Mo say pray.
Okay.
So praise Allah.
That's right.
So what we have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is that everything that an elder or someone or that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali presents to us, all the time it may not be found in a book or on a piece of paper.
Absolutely.
Right away. And there's some downsides and there's some advantages to the oral tradition.
That's right.
One of the advantages is that those who have not truly been initiated into what the science is behind the science of the Moorish Science Temple of America, then they will second guess or even doubt or put down what other elders have actually taught. Now this tells us two things: either they have not been initiated truly, into the teachings of the Moorish-Americans Temple of America, or they haven't done their due diligence. Some people go around and they lay hands on themselves and come all that important unless you know how to exercise it.
Right.
But if you were to ask them how to do certain things, such as run a meeting, bury or baptize someone, they would not even be able to perform these particular what it is and things of this nature. So the oral tradition to the Moorish-Americans is very important because a lot of our stuff or our teachings will come from mouth to ear.
That's right.
So another advantage, it can be given anywhere at any time by any adult who has some historical facts.
That's right.
So sometimes it might not even be in a temple meeting.
That's right.
It might be, you might go to an elder's home and they might pull out a document and they might read it to you and never even give it or show it to you.
Right, exactly.
So that's one of the advantages because, as you see across the Moorish circuit, people are taking information, they running with it, thinking that they have the whole lesson.
That's right.
We're here to say that, we need to come together in order for us to get the whole lesson, or if we'll ever get the whole lesson. We might have Prince Caleb Joyner Ill later on who might come and be, find the actual rest of the aspect of the lesson. So it's less expensive compared to other sources of historical information, such as books and museums. This is because it does not need selling or buying of information.
Right.
So when you look at the Moorish-Americans, and especially when it comes down to Prophet Noble Drew Ali, people, when we ask you not to pay anybody who's telling you to pay for nationality, nationality card, nationality is free. It doesn't require you to pay an individual for paperwork to go and file in some court system that they say that they're against.
Especially when they say they're against the paperwork.
Oh yeah.
Talking about oral tradition. Another phrase for oral tradition is oral law.
Okay.
And when we look at oral tradition and oral law, it makes it possible for a society to pass knowledge across from generation to generation.
Right.
Without writing, as you just said.
Right.
It also helps people to make more sense of the world that they're in, or they exist in whatever era of time.
Correct.
And they used to teach this to their children and adults, the important aspects about their culture.
Right.
So in reference to my son, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali gives us certain laws to abide by. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali gives us certain acts to abide by, and additional laws and things of that nature, written, but also these laws are actually ingrained in their minds.
Correct.
I can remember my son when we united in the temple. My son was my daughter's age.
Okay.
He was about 1 year old.
Okay.
And the first thing he learned was the Moorish-American prayer.
Okay.
Now, mind you, he couldn't read, because he was a baby.
Right.
But he knew how to recite. He heard the sound of the prayer the Prophet Noble Drew Ali has given to you and I, Moorish-Americans, Moorish-American Muslims, members of the Moorish-Americans of America. And this prayer is the aspect of the focal point which identifies him as a Moorish-American Muslim.
Praise Allah. Islam. And also, when you're looking at the oral tradition, a lot of people, one of the things is that General George Washington.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
One of the teachings in the Moorish-Americans Temple of America is that General George Washington chopped down the red flag, or what we call the proverbial cherry tree.
Correct.
Now, when you do a deeper investigation, you'll come to find out that it's a myth. True indeed, on a point in the aspect of General George Washington chopping down a cherry tree.
Okay.
Now, when you do a deeper investigation, you'll come to find out that, number one, George Washington was a Masonic. He was a Mason.
He was.
And that particular group of individuals don't do anything without some purpose or meaning behind it.
Right.
So, in fact, the purpose and meaning behind the story is that, number one, George Washington was not the first Mason here in America.
Okay.
There was a guy by the name of Henry Prince, who was the first. He was the first Grand Master of a lodge, and I believe it was in somewhere in Massachusetts.
Okay. No.
So he was actually considered the first.
Mhm.
Okay, and then George Washington. When you look at this guy,
Right.
His name wasn't even George Washington.
Nope. That's what
when
a lot
you
of
do a
people
little
think.
deeper investigation,
Right.
And as a result of that, this story about the proverbial cherry tree, the prophet, demonstrates that to us as individuals, and this just didn't come up. It's an importance and a meaning behind the story,
Okay.
and how it relates to the cherry tree being actually the flag that flew here in America, and any Moors that know the history of this flag flying here in America, and the Europeans who came over at that particular point in time.
Right.
George Washington had a lot of wars with a specific group of people,
right? And
these specific group of people were Cherokees.
Exactly. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, when you look at the word Cherokee, right, it leads us to cherry tree, right? Because the Europeans couldn't enunciate our language. Now, when we talk about the cherry tree, I'm doing a little bit of more investigation. Come to find out, in Washington, D.C., you have the cherry blossoms.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
Okay. Now, the Europeans or groups of people were calling one of our ancient landmarks a Cherokee tree. You see? Okay. It was an ancient landmark.
Cherokee tree.
And as a result of that, now you come Cherokee tree. Now they started saying the cherry tree. It might seem far-fetched, but when you do a deeper investigation and you start looking into, if you will, who these people, the Cherokee were, you'll find out that very much so they were Moors. And, they were here in this part of the world 10,000 years before Columbus.
Exactly.
And with that story about George Washington said, "My father, I cannot tell a lie, did chop down the cherry tree."
Right.
It alludes to him being honest, right? And when in fact, if the story is a myth, how could he be honest? And also, what would be the point of a whole nation of people teaching us that in grade school, all the way up through high school, and still teaching that today to people, and people haven't really went and did a deeper investigation to find out that it is actually a myth.
Okay.
But yet and still, Prophet Noble Drew Ali transmits this story to us, right? And then along with that, he said there were 35 Moors and 20 Anglo-Saxons who established the Union.
Right.
Or established this government.
Right.
So we know and understand that the Constitution, or the name of America, or the Union, is actually older than the Constitution itself.
Okay.
We do have documentation of that.
This is true.
And we're not holding any secrets for those who are watching.
Nah.
We're just not gonna give out all of the information, and the reason being is because it's a group of individuals who try to say that Prophet Noble Drew Ali was Thomas Drew, right?
Wow.
And they, they did this whole spiel.
Okay.
But what they did not tell is that they were not even the originators of that particular information.
That's right.
It was a brother from Nepal, right? And his name is Fathi Abadat, something like that. He's actually the first person to do the research. Those individuals went and grabbed his research, right?
Right.
And said it was theirs. Plagiarizing,
right.
And basically he published that work, and sometime in I want to say it was actually probably the early 2000s.
Okay.
And I heard these guys going on. It was on a YouTube show. They was going on and on about how they found it.
Right.
They went to the library. No, you probably went to the library after you read what the brother put out from Nepal.
Exactly.
So, in that reference and regard, also, when it comes down to the oral tradition, it is possible to ask questions to the oral information so as to in-depth information.
Okay.
So, when something is given orally, a lot of times that's just it's kind of surface.
That's right.
But there's more science or more meaning behind it.
Exactly.
And just like you in high school, and if your algebra teacher taught you everything without making you do any work and teaching you about those formulas, would you have appreciated or even tried to dig even further? So that's now let me talk about some of the disadvantages.
Okay.
Right. Some of the disadvantages of the oral traditions. Oral tradition does not go very far in the past in some instances. The transmission of information depends on the power of memories of successive generations.
Okay.
Right? So now you have some elders who, they've been in the temple, or, they might have been given an oral tradition or a teaching. And as they get older, they may not be able to exercise their memory as they were, or did at an earlier decades when they were younger.
Correct.
Oral tradition does not maintain the same value of oral history. Instead, the value keeps on changing as time goes on.
Right.
And this is where we see people trying to make fun or saying that somebody lied about Prophet Noble Ali, saying that he didn't or George Washington didn't chop down the cherry tree.
Correct.
Which is, he didn't chop down a physical cherry tree, but it's for sure, it's proverbial. For sure, he did cut off a nation of people, which were the Moors here in this part of the world.
Absolutely.
Okay. Oral tradition may be biased at times.
Right.
This is possible because of nature of transmission of itself. Oral transmission is full of, sometimes it can be full of exaggerations, creativity, and sometimes the information may talk of good things only.
Okay.
So, these are some of the disadvantages of the oral tradition. But we know and understand that the oral tradition goes back to the Mandinka, it goes back to the Hussein, the Fula, the Songhai Empire, the Wolof, all of these Mosai, the Dugumba, and Mauritania, and we know that all of these are our brothers and sisters on the other shores, which they depend very heavily on the oral tradition.
That's right. Praise God.
So, for someone to say, "Oh, that didn't exist," or
that's a Eurocentric way of thinking. Because when you look at it, historically, and I went to school for history.
Okay.
The European, when you actually study and investigate, Europeans say that it isn't written name. So that's not necessarily true.
Right.
But it's not necessarily true because you got to look at it. Well, let's take, for example, our foreparents. Let's take them prior to what we call physical slavery.
Okay.
And they did have oral tradition. They also had written tradition.
Right.
But the whole part of oral tradition, as you stated earlier, Sheik, is the fact that oral tradition is an integral part for the transmission of history, customs, tradition, and folklore. The oral traditions are very valuable in stimulating and promoting Asiatic culture.
Okay.
So this is, when you hear it's being passed from mouth to ear.
Right.
And the reason of that is for cultural preservation. Now, for example, the Prophet Noble Ali in Act 6, the Prophet Noble Ali states that the Moorish-Americans are descendants of the ancient Moabites.
Right.
Now, the average individual might say, well, show me it in a book.
Right.
Now, you may be able to find it in a book.
Right.
You might not be able to find it in a book. However, when you actually start doing some investigation, of who the ancient Moabites were and their contributions to this world, you'll realize, and you start scaling back, I like to say the onion, so to speak, or taking the layers off the onion.
There you go.
You'll get a full understanding that, hey, they're who I am, and I'm who they are. Because when you look at the ancient Moabites, their religion was an ancient religion, and they say it was the Islamic faith. Well, we know that there's Islamism, the old time religion. It was a Muslim faith, and it was also rooted in the heart from Allah. So when you talk about oral tradition, it deals with thought.
Correct.
This is something that, and I'm not speaking radical to our listening and viewing audience. This is something that Eurocentric thought didn't have the ability to do centuries prior. They weren't capable of Eurocentric thought to some degree. So let's talk about the aspects of our ancient forefathers and their contributions to the modern world as well as the ancient world. And you're talking about the arts,
Right.
the mathematics,
Geography,
algebra, science, even language. Which you pointed out earlier. Botany, these are different aspects. I had the blessing of taking my children to the museum.
Okay.
And my son, he noticed when we went down to the African exhibit as well as the Asian exhibit, he said, "Father, that man has on the fez."
Okay.
So he was able to see, and I said, well, they're all intertwined and they're interrelated.
That's right.
It's only when you start dealing with Eurocentric thought where they try to divide us and say, okay, this is the importance of your oral tradition.
Right.
And also, oral tradition facilitates a better understanding of history. It not only comes from a moral standpoint, but it also comes from a historical standpoint by giving historical material. And as you stated before, although the accuracy of it may vary between society and community, there are some remnants that you'll find in every society and community.
Absolutely. And also, right, I was doing some digging and some legal records. And interestingly, I came across a whole paragraph. Actually, it was a whole book.
Okay.
And it started identifying who the Cherokee were and what they were identified as.
Okay.
Right. And that they were recognized as a separate nation of people.
Right.
Now, very, very interesting, right? Because, it says one of the oral traditions is that the Prophet Noble Ali was born on a Cherokee reservation. Right. And not only is that one of the oral traditions, when we starting investigating, I went and I started looking at the ancient Moabites, right?
Okay.
Now, there's a place in America called Moab, Utah.
That's right.
Okay, and for some reason there's an arch, right, that's made out of rock and stone, and these people saying they don't know where it came from.
Right. So,
I said, wow, so it piqued my interest, and I started doing a little deeper investigation. And one of our teachings from the Great Book of the Resurrection is that we never left Africa.
That's right.
That America is actually a part of Africa.
That's right.
And that the Atlantic Ocean at one time was not an ocean, it was a river.
That's right.
So we know and understand that science is stranger than fiction.
That's right.
People will believe something that's fictitious as opposed to, a scientific, or if you will, in this aspect, a scientific fact.
That's right. Now let's check this out real quick. So we're talking about oral tradition.
Right.
Now let's look at the advent of physical slavery. So to speak. When our ancestors, to some degree, they were suppressed from actually reading.
Right.
So what they had to do was they had to pass on an oral tradition.
Right.
Now I want to point to a particular record that I want to demonstrate from.
Okay.
And hopefully, it makes a little sense on why oral tradition was passed on not only during that time, but before. These are ancient customs, right? So when you look at it, right, this particular record says, and this is from 1824, it says an old stock from Africa died out of the country. Speaking of reference to these shores.
Okay.
Right? The grosser customs, the ignorance and paganism of Africa died with them. Their descendants, the country born, were better looking, and this is from a Eurocentric mindset.
Right.
So if I was looking at this European writing this, and I was, caught up in
Eurocentric mindset,
right, I would think that, less of my foreparents.
Right.
But really, I can decode through because the Prophet Noble Ali gave me the lessons.
Right.
And he gave me the law.
Teaching you how to think.
Right, he's teaching me how to think. He's teaching me how to think with right conduct, right? So when I look at this, right, let me continue. It says, their descendants, country born, were better looking, more intelligent, more civilized, more susceptible of religious impressions. They're talking about Christianity. Growing up under the eyes and families of their owners, they became more attached to them, were identified in their households, and accompanied them to church. The gospel was preached to masters and servants. Servants having no religion to renounce grew up in the belief of their masters. And that's what it says. On the whole, however, but a minority of, and I'm going to say Asiatics, even though it says Negroes, and that small one attended regularly the house of, and it says God, but I'm going to say Allah, and taking them as classes, their religious instruction was extensively and most seriously neglected. Now, this right here, this particular record, the reason I read that is because when you look at the oral tradition from ancient times and even now, it was important and it was imperative to maintain oral tradition because, you know, physical slavery as well as mental slavery did a number on our people, and they're still doing a number on our people. So this is the importance of why it was important. When you have everything stripped away from you, the God of your understanding, to some degree, stripped away from you, it is imperative that you maintain a whole steadfast to the culture and the heritage that you had on these shores, you know, because we know some of our ancestors were caught and some of them were brought.
Islam. And you know, there are people running around talking about the Prophet Noble Ali never went to go see Woodrow Wilson.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it. All right.
Now you know and understand that the Prophet Noble Ali was born in the state of North Carolina, 1886.
That's right.
And he had traveled all around the world.
That's right.
And by 1913, he came back to America.
That's right.
Well, in fact, President-elect Woodrow Wilson was the president from 1913 right to 1921, which is some of the advent of Prophet Noble Ali, right?
Absolutely.
And not only that, before he was the president of the United States, before then he became the governor of Newark or New Jersey.
That's right.
He became the governor of New Jersey in 1910.
That's right.
So, you know, if our organization, the Moorish-Americans Temple of America, started out as a civic organization, which a lot of people say, you know, if it started out as a civic organization and it was started or founded in Newark, New Jersey, you mean to tell me that he didn't meet Woodrow Wilson?
Right, in Newark.
Right.
That's
and
right.
you mean to tell me, you know, that the proverbial cherry tree that was chopped down by General George Washington in 1913 when the Prophet Noble Ali got back here, he didn't go to the White House and retrieve, maybe specifically not from the White House,
that's right,
but there was a vault where Prophet Noble Ali knew that our flag was hidden.
That's right.
Now, also, right, we have a story which is not from this. It's not from a separate organization, but it's from the elders of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science.
Okay.
And I was blessed at a young age, and I didn't understand what it was saying, right? And I would read it. But let me read this. And this was it has actually no date, but actually on it. However, it was someone may know where the temple is in Newark, New Jersey. At that particular time is 126 Court Street. And it says the Moorish-American history, nationality, and birthrights taken away from the Moors, city of Philadelphia and state of Pennsylvania. And we like to give high esteem honor to Grand Sheikh Azim Hopkins Bey every October the 14th, which is like really the eve of our convention. He holds the trek through time and goes through some of our history about Philadelphia. Now, the nickname for Philadelphia is the Keystone State. Right? And when you look at a keystone, you'll find out that when an arch is built, that the keystone is the most important stone in holding that arch together. So, question to me is, why would Philadelphia be called the Keystone State? Maybe it's because, you know, the keys that we had was turned over to the Europeans, and also that Philadelphia was the first seat of government. Right? Okay. So let's read a little bit. By 1774, most of the Moorish armies were defeated. The European settlers did nothing at first. They studied them, the way they ate, lived, and acted. After being conquered and put into slavery, all history of the Moors and their teachings were collected by the Europeans and burned. Now, do I think they burnt them? I don't think that they did. Maybe after they recorded them. But, you know, that's just me. In that same year, at 6th and Chestnut Streets, Philadelphia, PA, the Moors were stripped of their names, nationality, and birthrights, and the word Black and Ethiopian were placed on them instead. Their national last names were Il and Bey.
That's right.
Dating back in ancient times to Abraham and Hagar,
Okay.
who were really Abraham Il and Hagar Bey.
That's right.
Now, check this out. On October the 14th of the same year, the First Continental Congress met at Independence Hall at 6th and Chestnut Street in Philadelphia, PA. So praise Allah for Grand Sheikh Azim Hopkins Bey for preserving, right, or culturally preserving some history that's very much so connected to us. And to say that, you know, General George Washington never chopped down the cherry trees, that the marks of Negro, Black, and color would never put on us.
Right.
You understand?
Absolutely.
To say that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali did not meet with President Woodrow Wilson. Actually, he met with two presidents.
Right.
President Woodrow Wilson, and he also met with Calvin Coolidge.
That's right.
Because when you look at the history and the time frame of those particular two presidents, you know, these were the presidents that he had to work with. And matter of fact, it was prophesied that the Europeans knew who Prophet Noble Drew Ali was, right?
Absolutely.
So, the nation's capital at that time, a result of that meeting was the enforcement of the first 7 articles of the present-day Constitution, known then as the Articles of Confederation. The enforcement of this law put the Moors, who by now clung to the words marks of Negro, colored, and Black outside of the constitutional fold, thereby rendering them as undesirables and thus unable to receive the rights and immunities as well as the protection of a citizen as provided by the national constitution.
Right.
Whereas by their being recognized as undesirables, the slave advocate could use them to supply the slave labor which was in great demand in the new nation without fearing reproach of the law. However, in 1774, this country was not lawfully recognized as having its own independence. Therefore, the words Negro, Black, Colored, etc. were not officially put on the records of the Moors, but used extensively in actual practice.
That's right.
In the year 1776, which is 2 years after 1774, which in our Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, it talks about us losing our name. So far, this document is verifying and validating what's in our Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the Moors were divided as a nation, and our flag was taken down by George Washington and put in a safe in Independence Hall. History records this event as George Washington cutting down the proverbial cherry tree, of which our flag is widely known because of its bright red field and a 5-pointed green star in the center. In 1779, which takes us to the Divine Constitution and Bylaws, the Moors were put in perpetual slavery, and the words Negro, Black, Colored, Negro, Colored, and Black were put on their state records. At this juncture, it need be noted and clarified that perpetual slavery did not exist in America until 1779, despite what most people think.
Correct.
Right? Agreed that there are a number of writings placing the beginning of the institution of perpetual slavery at earlier dates, like some people say 1619, right? However, these writings has no valid record to prove such speculations and opinionated presumptions, as all authoritative documented records fix the date at 1779. So one would say, hey, we need some more research and investigation, right? Now, it's a name given in this document, because I'm not going to go any further, right? But it's a name given into this document. And for the longest time, I was looking for this name, and it's T. Comp T. Bey. I was looking, and we're not going to say the name, right? Because when I found out what the name was, I was like, for 15 years, I thought it was T Compty, but it's not. Right? It's another name. Okay, so that's a blessing, right? And then that proves a little bit. So I was like, well, the 35 Moors and the 20.
Right.
How was it 35 Moors and 20 Anglo-Saxons?
Okay.
I looked, I couldn't find anything until maybe about 10 years ago. I found something, but I ain't gonna keep. We'll come back to that later. And yeah. So I just wanted to read that piece.
That's a blessing because when we're talking about with the particular record that the Sheik shared, we're talking about a proverb.
Yeah, that's right.
And also we're talking about the proverbial cherry tree.
Okay.
So when you look at a proverb, proverbs are used in ordinary conversations to guide, encourage, to praise, admonish, to teach, rebuke, or reprove.
That's right.
Right? But also it facilitates a better understanding of history as well.
That's right.
So, in the record that the Sheik just shared, he made mention of the Europeans possibly burning certain records.
That's right.
But when we look at it and we investigate history a little bit, further, the earlier parts of this particular part of the world, you'll find that they still had a lot of our history preserved.
Oh yeah.
And one particular one that I wanted to read, and this is again from an individual who had our history. It says, "The delict does not accept, yet records the opinion of recent authors," and this is from 1872, that think when Europe was inhabited by wandering savages whose only weapons were roughly hewn stone, America was already peopled by men who built cities, raised monuments, and had attained to a high degree of culture. So they're speaking specifically about our foreparents.
That's right.
And they're trying to codify it, but not putting it out there, right? It says, besides the earlier American civilizations described by Plato, we might find another argument in favor of Adam and Noah's American nationality. And that's what it says, American nationality. And the fact that as a whole, and this is what they say, the New World, but this world is as old as the other side.
That's right.
The New World, Aborigines. That's an important word because when you look at the term Aborigines, we're talking about original people.
That's right.
We're talking about Moors.
Yeah,
we're talking about
the people. Right. We're not talking about the people that live in Australia.
We're not talking about them. Right.
And that's where that's where some of these sovereign people, they read the Resurrection book.
Right.
Somebody read the Great Book of the Resurrection.
Absolutely.
And basically they found out the word Aboriginal.
That's right.
And they started using it like they came up with it when the elders was demonstrating that it's an ancient term. And the elders, as early as the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, were demonstrating this amongst their circle.
That's right.
So let the truth be told, those sovereigns are not the originators of this word Aboriginal. And that's the codification.
That's
right. See what I'm saying? And I got a record, but where you finish that, I like that.
So also it says, because it's saying the origin of man in America,
right,
Aborigines.
Right. Okay.
It says have preserved a clear and more accurate remembrance. So when you talk about remembrance, you're talking about oral tradition.
Okay.
Because the remember is to be acquainted with whatever has been taught or passed down from generation to generation, right? Great archaic meaning ancient, events narrated in Holy Writ, which is paper.
Holy Writ.
So we're saying
papyrus documents.
That's right. Exactly. Holy Writ, the nations of those, the Moabites, the ancient Moors, had preserved a clearer and more accurate remembrance of the great archaic events narrated in their books, right? Than the nations of the Eastern Hemisphere, with the only exception of the chosen people of Allah. And I put Allah there, says God, but that is what he ascribed to Moses. The Western continent was the cradle of humanity.
Right.
Speaking specifically where we at right now.
Praise Allah. And I had another record, right, that's from an esoteric point of view that agrees with that. So now we have something that's taught in mainstream, colloquialism or school, grade schools, colleges, and then you have something that's taught in, if you will, for those who have been initiated, we have a record of the same thing that they're saying, but in a different way.
That's right.
But now, right, back to the issue of the 35 Moors, right? This record, which I'm not going to give the name of it, and if you want to get the name of the record, because we just not going to be putting out.
That's right.
We're not going to just be putting it out there because people they take information and run with it and say, "Oh, well, we the ones," and
we ain't slave holding. We just we're good.
We're preserving.
That's right.
You know, we're preserving it.
Exactly.
So this is the preface of the particular book that I'm reading from.
Right.
And it says, for most Americans, the story of their nation's origins seems safe, reliable, and comforting. We were taught from elementary school that the United States, drawn largely from England, who ventured to these shores in search of religious freedom, and the narrative have never served some of the contributions made by Africans to America's success, and feel perhaps a heightened sense of regret, remorse, or even guilt. Our mothers and fathers were white. In this series of colonial documents, contemporary first-hand accounts, we talked about first-hand accounts, right? And FA test results, which essentially challenged the national storyline depicting America's first settlement as white, British, and Christian. We postulate that many of the initial colonists were Sephardic Jews, which are Moors, because Spanish, Sephardic means Spanish Jews. So what we're talking about is Moors.
That's right.
Okay? And Muslim, Moorish ancestry. You understand?
That's right.
Flat out in the book. Now, I ain't write this book. It says, usually arriving as crypto Jews with their religious adherents disguised and crypto Muslims. These immigrants served in prominent economic, political, financial, and social positions in all of the original colonies.
Yeah, it is.
And I'll stop because he goes on and he blows it out some more. So, you know, for years I had been looking, and it took me to be able to cultivate my mind and be able to think when I read and have the indicators to be able to understand and translate the information for myself, you know, to be able to understand that what they were talking about Moors here in America that immigrated specifically, but we know and understand that we had always been, you know, 10,000 years before Columbus got here.
That's right.
Yeah, praise Allah.
Islam.
Islam.
That's right. And also, we're talking about the oral tradition. You know, getting back to the oral tradition. The fact of the matter is, a lot of our foreparents, they actually maintained their cultural preservation, as well as their religious preservation. And they held steadfast when that particular religious preservation, cultural preservation, because it went hand in hand.
That's right.
So when you look at it, right, when you talk about the second generation of Moors, because we're talking about 779, you know, you're dealing with physical and mental slavery.
That's right.
As opposed to the first generation, which was just dealing with physical slavery. Right. So when you look at it, right, and again, going back to this particular record, it says the more religious condition, and this is, I'm just going to put it out there, it says the slave Negro population, because by that time, the terms Negro, Black, and Colored were placed upon them, but it wasn't really going in full effect.
That's right.
So it says this, it says, and this is a European writing this, and this is 1843. All right, so he says, ignorance and doctrines of Christian duties. Now again, this is why the Prophet Noble Drali demonstrates in the Holy Quran and more sides of America that we're returning to Islam, because it was founded by our foreparents for our earthly and divine salvation. Because what they were demonstrating at that time was earthly salvation. But let's look how steadfast our foreparents were, because although they were physically, you know, put in the bondage, mentally, they couldn't be broken. That's right. So let's see this. It says their notions, speaking in reference to the Asiatics at that time, of their character and offices, and this is the European writings of Christ and of the Holy Ghost, a future state of mind of what constitutes holiness of life, are indefinite and confused. So he's saying they're indefinite and confused. He says some of them, or some are brought up in the Christian land and in the vicinity of the house of God have heard of Jesus Christ. But who is he? And what has he done for a ruined world? They cannot tell. So even though they're trying to indoctrinate them, they're not breaking off of this. Right. It says the Mohammedan, and that's the prophet. The prophet uses that term.
And the Moorish literature.
That's right. That's right. The Mohammedan African remaining of the old stock of importations, although accustomed to hearing the gospel preached, have been known to accommodate Christianity to Mohammedanism. and that's Islamism.
That's
That's
right.
Islam, right?
That's right.
And he says, God, they say, is Allah, and Jesus Christ, they say, is Muhammad. The religion is the same, they say, but different countries have different names. And that shows you exactly what the Prophet Noble Drali demonstrates in the Holy Quran and Moorish American.
Okay.
But it also shows you the spirit of reincarnation as well.
That's
in
right.
that particular demonstration. Our foreparents, even though they were put in this institution,
Right.
they held on to oral tradition and they were able to preserve it to the point where they passed it on to generation to generation.
That's right.
Islam.
Reincarnation in the spirit of truth.
That's right.
You know, the truth cannot change
Will
or pass away.
That's right.
It's always going to be here. It always was here. And, you know, it's nothing anybody can do to destroy it, you know, try to keep it away from people.
That's right.
The truth is always, you know, it's always been here and it's always going to continue to be here.
That's right.
You know, and it's just some of how, you know, we have been taught, you know, by our teachers to be able to, and not necessarily taught, you know, but we've been taught in a way, we've been taught how to think.
That's right.
You know, because the prophet said, if I can get you to think, you can save yourself.
That's right.
So, you know, Moorish-Americans, Moorish-America, you know, it's time for us to start questioning. And, you know, it's okay to question your teacher as well.
Islam.
You know, but do it in a respectful way where, you know, you're going to get the most out of it, not, you know, you lying to me. And that's, you know, people are so caught up into, you know, they don't feelings and they don't know the principles. You know, some of our elders have sacrificed their blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, even some of their finances, because let the truth be told, I mean, specifically at our temple.
That's right.
Our ministers don't get paid. And I'm a minister. I don't get paid.
That's right.
You know, I do it because I love it. You know, and, you know, we are community and, you know, we help each other out. That's right. And that's how other nations of people do. And that's where we need to start moving towards. Right. I mean, you know, those who are not already doing it, you know, we're going to have issues, but there's a way that we can work our issues out. And the way that we can work our issues out are our principles, which are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. That's right. Also, we have the divine constitution and bylaws. And let the truth be told, we also have Moorish court. Right? And I mean, you know, and you know, the Jews call their court by a different name. But you know, everything that they have, we have. That's right. You know, so man, come and help us in the Moorish-Americans Temple of America. That's right. You know, because all those people who have sold those packages for who that's not helping people, right, for hundreds and thousands of dollars and telling people holding ceremonies with hundreds of people, charging them money. That's right. None of that money has the Moorish-Americans Temple of America seen. Not at all. You know, I mean, I've been here for 20 years, right, and I'm here to tell you that, you know, at least my location and some other location that's a physical location has seen it, please email us and let us know. That's right. But I'm more than sure that, you know, no temple in Philadelphia, no temple in New Jersey, no temple in Virginia, North Carolina has ever seen any of the funds that these people who are out here saying that they are teaching nationality and charging people for it. I guarantee you that it's lining their own pockets. That's right. So, you know, this is the eve of our holy day. That's right. Please feel free to visit us at 1055 North Milton Avenue. Absolutely. We start at 8 p.m. To 10 p.m. If you can't make it then, please come to our Sunday school, which starts at 12 noon to 2 p.m. That's right. Also, this Sunday, Sheikah Seabreeze Bay will be going, her and some other members will be going down to Washington, D.C. at the Lincoln Memorial for actual Freedom Day. That's right. And please, you know, feel free to visit with them. Right. We'll just stand back to make sure that the temple remains open. That's right. And that, you know, if you can't make it to DC or whatever, you can come and you can fellowship with us and attend Sunday school. So, please feel free to visit nobledrylee.org.
That's right.
And you can send us send us a comment. The webmaster will get back to us. Moorish-American Society of Maryland's website is still under construction.
Subscribe to the page, though.
Please subscribe to the Facebook page. We do post a lot of our things there. Also, More Sense. Subscribe to More Sense or Moorish-American Society.
That's right.
Also, you can find us via Spreaker.
That's right.
Just look up More Sense Media.
That's right.
And we're working, to grow our media,
That's right.
media platform and group, so to speak. So, just
real quick, I also want to give honor to those Moors who went out 2 weeks ago, out throughout the city.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give honor to the Moors, and you are, because we, a little pressed for time, but I want to give honor to them because they went out. We all went out collectively in East Baltimore.
Okay.
It was just a good demonstration overall.
Okay.
The community was very receptive.
Right.
And this is what we're about.
That's right.
We were about getting out amongst our people,
right,
and actually building with them and having them come into their own,
right.
Saying not necessarily forcing it on them, but just letting them know that look, we can, there are principles out here,
right,
and these particular principles will make your life better. And I can only bear witness to the teachings of Prophet Noble. My life is a lot better.
Yeah.
Praise Allah.
And giving the people an ear to listen to.
That's right.
Because let the truth be told. In other shows we talked about how we are to be friends to humanity.
That's right.
So it's not just about coming to our respective temple meetings.
Exactly.
It's not just about these social media platforms.
That's right.
It's about actually getting out into the public
and
actually teaching our people about who they are, because a lot of them are looking for the truth.
That's
and
right.
not because our people already don't have funds and finance. So what we are trying to do is teach them how to build up that character so they can work towards, possibly working for someone initially, and then, ultimately move into creating their own business, hopefully. But, everybody wasn't meant, or everybody doesn't want the responsibility of being a business owner.
That's right.
We're not discouraging that, but what we're saying is we meet people at all level of their needs, no matter where they are.
Absolutely.
So, the next time before you come out your mouth and say, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, do a deeper investigation and carefully observe the teachings.
That's right.
And sometimes there are things that, I might not know,
Right, exactly.
And you teach me,
exactly.
And we teach each other.
Exactly.
So, that takes a conversation that needs to happen. Operational unity.
That's right.
So that's what we're about. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. And we thank our special guest for showing up. And hopefully he'll grace us with his presence again. And he's saying that Baltimore City is dangerous. So those who are in Baltimore City, please do something or pray, to change the condition of our city. We're going to do the same thing. Islam. Praise Allah. So we're going to end with the Moorish-American prayer. Islam. Allah, the Father of the universe. The Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My God. And my salvation. By night. And by day. Through his holy prophet. Drew Ali. Amen. Islam.